I am not going to do the transcript though. There we go. So if anybody misses any of this or want to pass it on to some of your staff, I think it's going to be useful definitely to pass on to your staff. Also, as you probably saw, the CDC manual and logistics were sent out this morning. We will touch on CDC a little bit after Melissa's done, but make sure you take a look at that if you have not seen it. And reach out with any questions on it, but definitely begin putting in your CDC regional logistics as we have them, because that allows us to plan a little bit ahead of time, okay? So the biggest part of the meeting, obviously, is Melissa. We're very, very thrilled that she was able to join us, because we are going to do all of our reporting now for the coordinator report in JAGForce. She's been building some things out specifically for us. She walked me through how we are supposed to be entering some of the employer engagement activities in JAGForce so they can be reported on a little bit easier. And really, at least walking through it with me, it seems a lot easier than using that spreadsheet. And then she'll go through some of the reporting on how we pull some of the reports we need as well. So it'll hopefully keep us from duplicating information. It will also hopefully help us become a little more friendly with JAGForce and allow us just one system to use and jettison the old Google Drive. So Melissa, I am going to give it over to you, and feel free to screen share or however, and just to really appreciate you being here and taking time. This is very helpful for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be here and help out any way I can. So I do have a few things pulled up. So let me remember how to share my screen on this system.
There should be a little button at the top that says share. There you go.
And then I have to make it so I can see faces. I truly appreciate the people with cameras on, because I've done numerous trainings this week without anybody's cameras on, and that is difficult. So thank you for letting me see at least some of you. I appreciate that more than you know. So this is, I'm going to show you a few things, but this is kind of the coordinator report bullet point list that Bart had showed me. And so this is what I'm going to be building your guys' reports off of. I have started this first one that kind of just talks mainly about the IDPs, where we're going to store some information. Bart, I have not started the specific report for this one yet. That one's next on my list. So I will share that with you once that happens. So first, let's go over the IDP and like these types of things that are going to be on and what reports you guys will be running in order to capture most of this information. So you do not have access to this right now. Bart, you do as of like 2 minutes ago. But what this is going to be, I just started this morning when I logged in. This will be most of the independent or individual development plan information and where it is. So it is going to show you the unique case safe ID count is how many participants will be in it once I get it filtered down to just this year's. The other things that we'll have here is their grades, because I do know that you need to identify how many are in what grade. We added a new data point in there. I added a state-specific request section to the IDP, and we put in that Indiana Career Connect completed. So on the IDP, that's actually going to be located if you go into the individual record at the very bottom. It says state-specific requests. This will allow me the opportunity for different funding streams for different states' needs to be able to have one section that, as a national network, we can kind of understand that it might get a little bit crazy because there's 39 states in our world. Every state has different funding things. And if I can't truly make something universal, such as the Indiana Career Connect specific thing that you guys need, I'm going to throw it down in this section for everybody. When you guys are talking to specialists, what you will have them do is you'll have them go to the IDP tab at the top for that data point. And if you don't know, there's this drop-down menu. This takes you to every section of the IDP. And I added in the specific state request one. So currently, Indiana's the highlight. There is only you guys with a specific request. So they'll be able to come here. They'll be able to select however many students they work with that have completed. I don't remember the requirements. It's like registered and resume, I believe. And then they can select and update all of them at one time. So this will take them, like, even though they're working in this Indiana Career Connect, when they go to say, yeah, it's done in this side of the world, it's not going to take them long. Don't let them tell you it's going to take them long. It'll literally take check marking who it is and hitting apply once they update it. Like, it's going to take them 10 seconds to actually complete this task. So this will allow that to show up in the report for you guys. The other things that are here, there is the career interest surveys. I wanted to talk to you guys because I know that the Indiana Career Explorer, right, is the name of the thing that you guys want everybody to complete. I can potentially create a check mark that will mark true down in that section if one of these 3 entries says Indiana Career Explorer. The hard part will be, and this is going to be a great example, the hard part will be when we have people who don't spell correctly. So if it doesn't, like if it's not spelled correctly, then it's really hard to create a formula based off of that. So I'm going to kind of leave it up to you. Do you want me to try to create that formula for you guys? And maybe if it says Indiana Career on one of these, go ahead and mark it true, knowing that if they spell career wrong or Indiana wrong or abbreviate that it won't show up on that check mark. Or do you want to be able to just kind of glance through and see who has it, no matter how they choose to spell this world? Because human error is a wonderful thing. There's like 20 different ways to spell McDonald's, 20 different ways to spell Walmart, and apparently at least 2 to spell Indiana Career Explorer.
Yeah, I think we just want something that can verify that however they put it in, they did it. However they decided to spell it. But we definitely need to make sure, we're being a little more detailed on how we're spelling it, because there are a couple different abbreviations people use for it. There's an old one, there's a new one, there's typing it out. So
Yeah, and a lot of it's just kind of based off of training. So I mean, yeah, it's kind of up to you. You guys are able to. So like if I wanted to right now come and edit this, I could edit it to spell it correctly. Um, but yeah, it's just kind of up to you guys. Think about it, let me know. Right now, this is set up so that way, no. So that way it just says the survey names, because there are up to 3 surveys that they can take on one IDP. So just brainstorm, think about it, talk about it as a group, and let me know what you decide. I'm happy to make the formula to make it an automatic thing where it will be check marked. Yeah, it's just kind of, this is your information. So I just need you to make that decision.
I think
The
that
other
check
thing,
mark is the easier route to go. Does everybody kind of agree with that?
I've got a question about what's required on the IDP, because that's what I'm going to get from specialists. So if, and just to clarify, when it says INC, Indiana Career Connect completed, is that all 3?
Yes,
Or
Indiana
is
Career
that,
Connect being completed per the definitions on the report are all
okay,
3 assessments completed.
so probably the title needs to say all 3 assessments in Indiana Career Connect completed. Because otherwise, that's what my specialists do, is they're like, well, I've done the career interest survey and it's done. I'm like, no, you have to do the other 2. So, but then my other question is, do I have to put the survey name in? If I've check marked Indiana Career Connect completed, do I have to put in those survey names? Or is the report just going to make sure that I check the box.
So let me go back to what you said. They don't have to create any assessments in Indiana Career Connect. They just have to have the resume and registration. Indiana Career Explorer, they have to have the assessments completed.
You're right. I'm mixing it up. You're right. So, okay.
Beth has a question, and I think it's kind of touching on what I was saying. Can they just select career interest survey completed without entering a name, knowing that's what we use anyway for it?
Right.
I mean, so the IDP, according to the JAG model, can be done numerous different ways. It can be done in JAGForce. It can be done in their previous database system. It can be an Indiana specific IDP. It can be a printed IDP. There's no specific requirement according to the national JAG model. So there is 0 data points in this whole area that are actually required. So how you guys utilize this tool within the state of Indiana is completely up to you guys. I would encourage you just to be consistent amongst the states. So that way, when you do pull a report, you know exactly what you're pulling. So Bart, that's kind of up to you.
Is anybody using anything outside of INTS for your career assessments, or using INTS plus something else, or only INTS? I think that sort of also feeds into the question on how we get.
We have a specialist who's like, he couldn't get into Indiana Career Explorer or Connect, sorry, Explorer. And so he did the ONET, My Next Move. And I'm going to tell him he has to do Indiana Career Explorer, but he would prefer to just use the ONET. It is different from, I thought it'd be similar, and it's not.
So prior to Indiana Career Explorer changing, to futures and the system changing and all that, that was the requirement to do Indiana Career Explorer. So if they choose to do other assessments, that's awesome. But
optional.
this year with Indiana Career Explorer being back, that's what they need to use, and that's what we'll put in that's what we'll want to be tracking in the report. So perhaps we can just change it to say Indiana Career Explorer completed. Is that something possible, Melissa?
Right.
Yeah, I can put that down in the state specific one.
I think that would probably be the easiest route. I appreciate it. I don't know how much work that is for you, Melissa, but we appreciate it. That will allow us to know who's using the tool. Julie, to answer your question, yes, we'll need to use Indiana Career Explorer back again in the career presentation. If they want to use other assessments as well, that's not going to hurt.
Right.
Shows it even more in-depth research.
Yeah, there's some pretty cool ones out there. Like I always use the ASVAB. The ASVAB, well, first of all, I didn't have to do it because a military person came in and did it for me, which was always beautiful. But that's also like a national database system too. So there's a lot of really cool ones out there.
Does anybody have any questions so far on what Melissa's shown us, other than what we've talked about?
This does require that every student have an IDP that's electronic. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. So if they are entering these, they would all have an IDP record.
Gotcha.
Yep. And, Joe, we require that already, obviously, for any kid who's being billed for pre-ETs with the 504 IEPs. And, we've sort of suggested, strongly encouraged the use of the IDP for all kids. So, moving in this direction. And I think we were trying to do that last year anyway, but it certainly will help to have that record that everyone can access it.
Yeah. And Brianna, on that note, like I do know that we added some things when I was working with Laura in the IDP specific that you guys were tracking in like Google Sheets and stuff like that. I think like the FAFSA was one of the things that you guys were kind of tracking outside of that we added to the IDP. So that way people weren't having to go to multiple spreadsheets to do one thing that they could just do in here. It was a very universally good data point. So that type of stuff is all in there for you guys. All right.
So just to make sure when they are doing when they complete the assessment, we are going to do the check mark box, or are we going to write it in
Yeah,
the
I'll
form?
add it.
Okay.
I'll add it to this state specific or specific state request one. I'll add in another data point that says Indiana Career Explorer completed. And it'll be in that same section at the very bottom of the IDP, but as long as they have an IDP created, it'll show up on this list.
Okay.
So it'll be really easy for them to add in. And I'll be able to do that right after this call. It won't take but a minute to do. And Bart, did we decide whatever this was that we were going to leave this off? I forget from our call. I didn't write it down. This GWEC
Yeah,
thing.
it might be something that we start to add in the future. Bree, do you think we should just add it now while we're in there and doing this stuff, or is it something that we should add in the future?
I mean, how much of a lift, Melissa, is that for you? I mean, I think it wouldn't hurt to have it now, and then that gives us a bit of a baseline. But if it's a big project, it's not as important as the other ones.
So it's not a big project. The only thing is, and so when I approach most things in the system, I always try to make things really universally friendly. So it's the really big part will just be there will be then 3 data points down here that are added to it, and then times that by however many other requests come out once they find out Indiana's getting specific things within the IDP. So
I'd
Brianna,
say let's go ahead
you
and
know
add
our
it.
calls, you
And
know how that works.
I was just thinking, well, it's because Indiana is so awesome and we're super special. That's why. But I would say let's go ahead and just add it to the request now while you're in there. I don't think it would hurt to have it to begin with. Now, Bart, that's a different training thing we'll need to talk about with others too, but couldn't hurt to have it.
Yep. Okay, so I will add that. And then also was this one, right? Nope, this one. Okay.
Indiana Career Explorer.
All right. So that's most of that stuff. Then we need to talk about the employer engagement specific side of the world. I hope that there's some model services in here somewhere so I can easily find one. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to just grab a random model service. So when they are entering a model service that has employer engagement, what they should be doing is adding that directly connected to their model service. So they would enter their model service, they would write down the narrative of whatever it is of that engagement that service provided to the participants. And then afterwards, they would come back in and then they would be able to add an employer engagement just by clicking on that tab. When they add that employer engagement, this takes the opportunity to be able to go directly to and connect a service directly to an employer. So if we type in McDonald's, I always do McDonald's as an example because there's 1,000 of them in every state. So I want you guys to be able to see that it's going to be maybe hard to figure out which one to do, but if you select this, little magnifying glass, it'll open up like all of the options with their addresses so you can select the correct one. You are also able to add a contact. If one exists already, you can search for it. Most likely it doesn't exist, but you can directly add a contact to that employer the same way that a contact's added anywhere in this world. You're able to select the type of engagement it is here, whether it's a true employer engagement as defined by the JAG model. Otherwise, if it's like a motivational speaker or some other type of presentation, which does fit a lot of categories. Down here is where they'd be able to select what type of engagement. Was it a meet and greet? Was it a PBL? Was it a tour, a mentorship opportunity, or something else that can fit into the category of? So this is where a lot of those interactions will be, those big group interactions when you take 20 students to a company tour, or somebody comes in and presents to your class of 30. These are where those types of interactions would go. And again, that connects directly to the narrative, directly to the attendance, and the services provided. The other place that we are able to track employer engagement is in our career activities. So a lot of those tier 3 employer engagements are oftentimes one-on-one type of interactions. They're a student on a Saturday going to a job shadow, or a student on a Saturday doing an apprenticeship or internship, or whatever the case may be. It's like they're those one student off events. So we house those so that way we can keep a student's career portfolio together in their career activities on their profile. So if I were to say that, I didn't even look who I grabbed, Aubrey. If Aubrey did some other type of engagement, we can still fill out their career activity up here with the type of employer, and that does narrow down to the type of job type, whether it's a service occupation, military, landscaping, clerical, all the whole 9 yards of things. And then if it's just an experience and they're not employed, you do not have to fill out the employment information, because there is a tier 3 engagement section all here. So I believe you guys had a work experience there, job shadow, apprenticeship, internship, employer partnered certification. Like any of these things can be entered in your career activity and that report pulled. I haven't built that report for you guys yet, that coordinator report specifically for the data points that you guys have. That will be on my list to start potentially this afternoon, probably tomorrow.
Not on camera.
I'm sorry?
That was my
Julie
fault.
has
I
a
apologize.
question. She is asking, let me go back to my phone here. Where is guest speaker activity notated in there?
The guest speaker would be in the model services one, because that's to a large group.
You got that, Julie?
So if I were to enter a model service for an ICE assessment, what's ICE? Oh, is that your Indiana Career
It's Indiana
Explorer?
Career Explorer.
When I think of ICE, I think of something completely different than Indiana Career Explorer. All right. That would be in your employer engagement here. So like if this was really John Deere guest speaker or whatever it was, they would be able to come into the employer engagement, select whoever it was, if I could spell, and then mark down like a meet and greet or a class presentation or a PBL engagement or whatever else would be in that tier 1 world of things.
So Beth asked, if we enter a model service time for a student doing a work experience, would there be an issue also entering it in their career activity?
No, I don't see an issue with that.
Any other questions on this part right now? Alrighty. Just keep popping that stuff in the chat.
And I'm really glad that you're looking at the chat, because I'm the worst multitasker ever.
Oh, I have my
cannot look
phone
at
up
it.
so I can see the chat on my phone and still see the screen. So it's double
Yeah.
duty here.
I can't handle that life. So when I do get this report built for you guys, it'll encompass all these, and you will be able to filter down by region or activity. So I just need to get that built. I will share it with Bart first to kind of go back and forth so he can make sure that it looks exactly how you guys would want it to. And then we'll share it with the overall Indiana group after that. Do you guys all know how to run reports well? Like, have you looked at them? You know how to export them? You know how to make sure you can see the details? I see a couple nods. I'm more concerned if there's any no's. Is there any no's?
I don't.
Okay.
Region 11.
Okay, so I want to go through that really quick because that's pretty important in terms of this world. To being able to just be confident getting in here and running these reports. Again, you don't have access to this reporter coordinator one yet, but that's the one you guys are going to be viewing. So I want to use that as an example. So when you run this report, there will be probably more filters than this. But what I want you guys to know first and foremost, because when I first started running these a couple years ago, I had my own freak out moments thinking I ruined the world. If you happen to accidentally delete one of these filters that are available, please do not worry. You did not ruin anything in the world. Like, you did not ruin a report for the entire network. All you would have to do is reload the screen. It'll pop back on. You guys do not have currently 48,000 students in Indiana actively engaged. That would be great, but you do not. So if that happens, very, very simply, just refresh your screen. Everything in the entire report will go back to how it started. Okay, so you guys can't break any report. I always want to shout that out because I did have a giant freak out moment 2 years ago when I first got in here. The other thing that I want you guys to know is that when you're looking at these, and maybe you go to your filters and you want to just filter down to region 1 or just filter down to whatever it is. This is kind of like, I always think of this kind of algebra, right? So in any of these reports, you have these equals to, not equal to, greater than. Think about high school. Think about those things that you did in high school of all that world. Generally, you're going to keep it as equal, but like with graduation, for instance, if 1 is true and 0 is false, we want to say, and we want to see all of our students, right? So if we want a graduation rate, we want to see all the students. We would need to include those graduated and not. So it's like less than or equal to 1. So just think about, slow down, think about high school algebra, and think about like interpreting word problems like that. But always remember that if you do want to narrow down to region 1, you do have to click apply. If you click off of it, it will not apply that filter. You have to hit apply. The other thing I want you guys to know is when you see these reports, you can reorganize them however you want. So if you want to just look at seniors, you can click these little triangles at the top and you can actually group the entire report by grade level. So if you want to see what seniors have done what, you can group the entire report by your 12th graders, or apparently some people have no grades. We'll have to go and look at that. But these, you can see your 9th graders, you can see your 10th graders. If you want to see less information than just your summary information, there's things down here at the bottom that say row counts, detailed rows, subtotals, and grand totals. If I want to see my summaries, I'm just going to turn the details off, right? So I'm going to say, okay, there's 5 9th graders listed on this report, 43 10th graders, 457 11th graders, and over 1,000 12th graders. Of that, 3 of my 12th graders have completed the FAFSA. So this will give you your broad overall totals if you turn off those detailed rows, okay? You can do that to any report in the system. If you wanted to organize and see what 12th graders have done different things, right? You can also put things as columns, and then that makes like this weird big old chart that you have all of your information. Maybe you want to do it by school and grade. So you can have grades and schools. Again, if you get to clicking around and you get lost and you're like, what on earth did I do? If you just reload the entire screen, it's going to pop it right back to where you started. You have not officially changed anything because you cannot break any report, okay? So you can do that in any of the reports in the entire system. You can also come to your reports. Know that it's automatically going to take you to your recent reports. So these are going to be the ones that you're running the most often. But if you want to search for reports, you just select all reports. And then here you can go down and just search for the word like employer, and it's going to take you down to anything with the word employer in it. So then if you're looking for a specific thing, you can just do that. If you're looking at progress reports, you can start typing the word progress and it'll give you just the reports that have to do with that. So don't spend your time scrolling through the bajillions of reports that people ask me to make. Search for the keywords that you actually want to look for and then go from there. Okay. That also being the case means that you are more of the leaders in the state of Indiana. If there's ever a report that you're like, oh my gosh, this has everything I need except for one stinking data point. If it had one more column, it would be perfect and it would save my life a whole lot. Reach out to me or reach out to Laura to reach out to me, whatever the process is in your world. And the worst I can say is no, because they actually come from two different areas and there's no way to really connect that. The best I can say is, yeah, give me 5 minutes and I'll just go in and add it in there for you. That's not a big deal. Okay.
Okay.
So I wanted to make sure to do that little overview because I know that reports are not everyone's favorite world. But the more you get in there and the more you kind of play around, the easier it gets.
Okay.
Michelle had a question. Are we to enter internship times as model services?
So I'm out of people. I'll grab a random kiddo. Not kiddo, young person. These aren't really tiny humans. In the internship, or how I would personally enter an internship, because it's an individual person's thing, is I would enter it under the career activities. I say that because within there, you can connect it directly to the employer. So we can run a report and say this employer has offered this to these students doing this. But also in that area, that tier 3 engagement area, there's an engagement start date and an engagement end date. So internships can be a week long. They can be an entire summer long. They can be a quarter long. So you can have that start and end date for that engagement opportunity for that specific student.
I think that's a great question, Michelle. I think we'll have Bart and Laura connect and maybe just get some like really solid guidance out to you all on what you should be entering for that. But that's an easy one to create more of a standard across the board.
Okay.
Yep, and we'll want to make sure that we definitely are entering those internships in. Good question and timely one. We were asked about internships. Leslie had asked about it. And the majority of the internship data that was in Indiana Career Connect was not aligning necessarily with the data in JAG Force. So we want to make sure our specialists, especially going forward as we're doing all the reporting now in here, are entering those internships into JAG Force as well.
Yeah, and Bart, what I can do too on my end is I can start creating, like after we get our reports finalized, I can create a JAG Force cheat sheet like I do with the JAG Force resource suite, where it's really a good guide of to do this. These are where you enter it. This is how you enter it quickly. This is the report you run. You enter this, this is what you do. So after we get everything finalized and exactly what you want to look like, I can help you kind of getting that created and then send it as a send it to you so you can edit any further that you need to and do whatever it is you want to do with it.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I owe you Outback Steakhouse gift card or something.
I will take steak
Yes.
anytime. No, when I was a specialist, I would have loved having all like this, the checklists and cheat sheets. So I always try to think from that perspective. I
I
didn't have
agree.
enough
Yes, you can
brain
see in the
power
chat.
to figure
If you
things
could see
out.
the chat, you would see it's a very popular idea.
Oh, good.
Does anyone have any additional questions? So the first report's not due till September 15th, so you certainly have time to um, familiarize yourself with this, talk to your specialists about it. A lot of you probably will have your specialists entering a lot of the data, so just going through with them and making sure they're putting it in correctly. Because what Melissa and I saw when we kind of did a dive into the system, and she worked with me on Monday on what she was going to present, was a whole lot of not checking the boxes, which is why it didn't show a lot of employer engagement. So, you know, when they do have a meet and greet or slash guest speaker, making sure that's in there when they do have, you know, whatever tier it is, checking those boxes rather than just, you know, putting it as a tier. Because if they don't, then it's not going to be in the system, and thus it looks like there's no employer engagement. Does anybody have? Oh, there we go. Go ahead.
What day did you say that was due? September or December? September.
September, not December. I mean, it's due in December as well.
It's September 15th. Is that what you said?
Yeah, so
September
the
15th.
coordinator reports are due on in the middle of the month, the 15th.
Hey, Bart, quick question. So is there a reason that we report monthly on this? That we have to maintain that? Or can we move to quarterly reports on this?
I compile it on a quarterly basis to send out, but we do look at it monthly.
Because
here's the problem. I'll tell you why we do it monthly. Because as Brianna can attest to and Leslie can attest to, we get random requests for things at very, very random times from either the governor's workforce cabinet or legislation or higher up in the agency. And, you know, if they request something and we don't have any data on it at all, then we're scrambling. And then it's an email out and say, hey, you need all your employer engagement data entered in by, you know, close of business on Friday or whatever. And oftentimes we don't even get that. Like the internship data that came at like a 3 o'clock in the afternoon one day, and it was needed for the following morning. So, you know, that's why we get asked for stuff at very, very random times, especially surrounding coordinator data.
The employer engagement data, yeah, they're entering model services, like that should happen in real time, and that should be able to be compiled in real time. But the IDP review of going back through the IDP and doing that, I mean, that's adding a little bit more to a specialist plate. Does that need to be done monthly? Or can that be spread out a little bit more? Because the employer engagement would get entered in real, like that could be compiled monthly, but for them to go back through and click all the kids that went on a field trip or all the kids that went on you know, did their college applications and all of that, is that data important enough to be done monthly?
I guess I would shoot back a question and you know, feel free to, if anybody else has input, why, if they, let's say they do a college application or they do an employer tour, why would they not be putting that data in real time anyway?
I mean, well, data entry, yes. In an ideal world, yes, in real time. But I mean, we're imperfect people. Because in my mind, entering that sort of doing an IDP, if I'm going to add, because I'm going to have to now, like if the more of the onus on this data entry is on the specialists, my job then transitions from not collecting the data, but ensuring that the data is entered in a timely manner and that it's correct and kind of double checking. You know, to me, a quarterly seems a lot more feasible to add that to the process than monthly of doing an IDP review.
Eric, I would just say, you know, on some of the, and maybe they're imperfect examples, but you know, some of the examples you're citing, right? College applications. I mean, that's a thing that should be ideally occurring frequently. You know, and so as a coordinator, if you have some specialists who've got kids who are lacking in that you know, that they're falling behind in submitting college applications. You know, that's a thing that, you know, ideally, I think I mean, obviously when you're not being a specialist, but, you know, would have the ability to kind of help influence and help them, you know, get those things up to speed, right? We don't want, I mean, although some of that is very cyclical, you know, you might be doing a ton of applications in September and October, but maybe no college applications happen in December, and that's okay. But to wait to have that information input, I think, you know, 3 months later or something might set your students up for a disadvantage to not be able to track that those activities are getting done. If that makes, at least in my mind, right? And again, maybe that's not the right example, but
Makes sense.
And can I add my 2 cents? So typically speaking, for a specialist, life is crazy. And if they wait and only do something quarterly, that's, as when I was managing programs, that was my biggest red flag. If somebody's only entering something once a quarter, how accurate is their data actually? Because I know I can't remember things from a month or 2 months ago. But also, since we like checklists in this group, let me share my screen real quick. Remember, we have this specialist daily and monthly JAG course checklist. This is, when you download this, like if you guys downloaded this is an editable document that will download right to Word. And you can set up, so every day, these are the things we need to do. I have a suggested timeline for how to do these 6 items of like just keeping track of your data as a specialist. Like you should not be doing all 6 of these things in the same week. You should spread them out. In your world, you might want to add, like, on the 2nd week of every month, really make sure that all your job application information or your college application stuff's entered. On the 3rd week of every month, make sure this is entered. Help specialists and spread out that time so that time management is easier for them, because they shouldn't be overwhelmed. They should spread out their information so that way everything's entered consistently every month. So you can use this as an editable thing and alter it so that way it fits your world.
Thanks, Melissa. That's a checklist. It's very helpful. Appreciate it.
So in our region, we have everybody fill out the IDP as best they can initially at enrollment and then update it as those things happen. Because when we do those coordinator reports, I love spreadsheets. And so I do a spreadsheet that keeps track of everything. So how they're progressing every month, and that we should see those numbers going up. And I think that we get to a point where then it's a reminder that, hey, you know, the numbers aren't climbing up fast enough in this area. You have this many students, you know, you should probably try to be at this point. So I think I like the monthly, because if it gets too out of hand, then we have that smaller time frame to try to get a whole bunch of stuff caught up. And trust me, I totally get it. We've been short 4 specialists, so all of us have been out in schools, and it's been hectic, to say the least. I think the most hectic part well, at least for me, was I put all of this stuff in JAG Force that now doesn't exist because I did it under me, because the school didn't exist in a W account. And so now when I went in, I have to go in under the specialist. And when I went in there, like, everything I put in there is not there. So he can see that there's 3 enrollments, but he can only see 1 person because that was a carryover person. And so now I'm like, I'm not putting anybody else in yet until we can get that straight. So I think that's the part when we're talking about.
Will you email Laura about that so she can let me know? It's an ownership. Okay.
Yes.
I might have something in my inbox then.
And
so that's
she's
just an
on
ownership
vacation.
issue. Oh.
Yeah, she's out. She was out starting yesterday through like next Monday. So she'll be back. It'll take a few days to get to you.
You can, if you want to just forward it to me, I have time on my calendar tomorrow to kind of problem solve stuff. So
thanks, Melissa and Michelle.
Well, I mean, because that's where it came up when we were talking about who, you know, going in and checking and making sure who enters this stuff. I mean, and as far as I can understand via Laura, that stuff has to be entered by the specialist. We can go in and see if it's there, maybe kind of, sort of. But it can't be something that we enter ourselves, from what I understand.
Best practice is to have the specialists enter their information. I mean, it's their data, they should own it. And the more they enter, honestly, the more vigilant they're going to be about seeing those red flags and knowing their students and knowing the system. There is a specialist in another state that somehow has gotten their manager to enter everything. And as a result, that manager is basically a full-time specialist and a full-time manager. So I'm still trying to kick that habit. Please let your specialists own their world. It is their world. They should be entering their data.
I have a question. So does this replace that, the numbers that we send to you monthly, Bart, off of the coordinator report that we receive monthly from the specialists?
Yes.
Or is this in addition to that?
This replaces all your reporting in terms of the Google spreadsheet, in terms of what you've been doing. So what Derek probably said it best, you turn a little bit more into a sort of data manager in terms of looking to make sure that the proper data is in there and addressing anything. You know, let's say you go in there and there's absolutely no employer engagement for 4 of your schools over the course of a month. That and you do it on, say, the 10th. Okay, I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna talk to those specialists, say I need this stuff entered in there by the 15th because I have to report, make sure that and then you run the coordinator report and say, okay, now my stuff's good. I will run it on the 15th of every month. From a statewide perspective, quarterly continue to send it out as we have, but this sort of replaces it. So it replaces you putting things in that Google Drive.
Okay.
Hey, so
Hopefully that is a good thing.
Bart, I have
You
a
like the
question.
Google Drive, okay.
Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I love participants without an IDP report. Right now it pulls from follow-up rather than from current students. So is that something that can be changed so it's current students? That'd be great.
I'm slowly making my way through the reports to get them all with the new year.
That's great. Thanks. Well, yeah. But that's probably going to be my biggest challenge, is making sure everybody has an IDP that's current.
Well, and here I have one more project going on, and then the next project is having at the creation of any profile an IDP created automatically. So that'll be a moot issue.
That'll be great
after this next project's done. So
thank you.
I try to stay on one road and one thing after another. So that is on my radar. And to let you guys know, I did go ahead and added those other data points. So it's on the list view for under the IDP, as well as Bart, it's in the report so far. So
Thank you so much.
Bart, I have a
wildly
question.
helpful. Oh, Sherry has a question.
Yes. So are we saying this for the report that's due September the 15th, that our specialists from the time the school started in August, like August the 8th, are we saying that they need to report was done for the month of August to put in September the 15th? Is that correct?
That is correct, Sherry.
So from the 8th to the 31st, or what have you?
Yes,
Okay.
Sherry.
Okay, thank you.
And I put it in the chat, but just, you know, I mean, you all know the first report is going to be wonky, and that's okay. Right. And, you know, if it's not complete, that's okay. It's a learning experience. And so, I mean, maybe by the time April rolls around, we'll feel really good about the reports this year, but don't, you know, give yourself grace and give your specialists a lot of grace on the reports for this year, where it's a new thing.
Okay. Yes.
it's a new thing. And from my understanding, Bart, correct me if I'm wrong, like this, you expect these numbers to grow. Like, you know that they're going to start small, and you expect, like, well, right now we have 10% of our students with the FAFSA. We have a FAFSA event in October. So in October, we know this data point is going to grow exponentially. So it's living, breathing, tracking towards goals, from my understanding. Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions
No?
for Melissa before we let her go to work on all the things that she has to work on? I would just say we truly appreciate this, Melissa. This was
Yes.
much needed. It's big. And we look forward to using JAGForce and setting the Google Drive into the ether of the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bart, just to let you know, you get to this report, it's on your recent reports because I'm logged in as you, but to get to the shared folder, when you click on reports, you'll just click on all folders and then you'll see an Indiana shared folder. It's something that I share with Laura for some funding or some like funding reporting. So there's other reports in there too that are going to be phased out, but that's where you find this Indiana one that you and I will kind of go back and forth on to finalize. Okay.
Awesome. Sounds good. I'll probably be reaching out with questions as these reports start to come in. So
Yep.
your patience in advance is appreciated with all of my questions. But thank you very much and have a good rest of the day. Okay.
All right. It's good seeing you
Thank
guys.
you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
All righty. And like Brianna said, it's sort of a build the plane as you fly it type of thing. So, we'll learn where the gaps are. We'll learn where some of the data points are more difficult to gain and things of that nature as we go along. Don't feel as though, don't stress yourselves out over it. There's going to be a learning curve for everybody involved. So, timing wise, I do want to kick it over to our guest speaker, Andy from Donate Life Indiana. We had a really strong partnership with them prior to the pandemic. They were connecting with over 1,000 JAG kids a year from their data. So a lot of you have not met Andy. She's back kind of doing the tour for the Indiana Donor Network and trying to connect with more JAG kiddos. So I'm going to turn it over to her to present a little bit. And again, if you have any questions, just let me know. Andy, I see you down there. So hello and good morning.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Everyone can hear me?
Good morning.
Hi, guys. As Bart said, we started working with JAG a few years ago, and then, of course, everybody knows we hit the lovely pandemic. And what's kind of really neat about JAG is we still connected with so many of your educators, and we're still able to offer virtual presentations. And so what I want to share with you is kind of ways that we've connected with JAG, who we are at Donate Life Indiana, and then how we would love to continue to connect moving forward. And the only way we can do that is having partnerships with different youth groups and also with different programs within the school, because we all know the best way to reach youth is within their classroom or when they're attending some type of educational camp. So we look forward to continuing our work with JAG, and I'm going to share my screen. Hold on. Okay. Desktop. And can everybody see that? All righty. So Donate Life Indiana, I just show, this is our logo here, and this is truly the logo that we want to familiarize anybody within Indiana with, because when you go to the BMV to sign up to be an organ donor, this is going to be the logo that you see. We've got the blue that represents the earth, the green that represents the grass, and then the spiral, which represents the circle of life. And that's truly what Donate Life Indiana is all about. Giving life, donating life when we're no longer here on this earth. So what do we do, just so you guys kind of all understand? Majority of our time is placed on managing the Indiana Donor Registry. That sounds like a really hot to trot name, but really all it is it's the place where when you sign up at the BMV or you sign up online at donatelifeindiana.com or you sign up when you get your hunting and fishing license, That's the registry where all the names are stored. And even if you remove your name, we have all of that historical data within our registry. A lot of people think that the hospitals manage the registry, but that actually would not be of their best interest, because a hospital is there to save lives. So we are a separate entity. We are not based out of the hospital. We manage the registry, and all deaths are called into Indiana Donor Network, Donate Life Indiana. Three other things. We manage a team called Team Indiana. This is for anybody who has had a transplant or is a living donor who has donated a kidney or a partial liver, but also for donor families. And the entire meaning behind managing Team Indiana is to recognize that donor families save the lives of these recipients, and they are able to compete in Olympic-style games because of their donor. And then I've already talked a little bit about the BMV. That's where 99% of people sign up to be a donor. And then lastly, we are educators. We educate the public on the importance of donation. Just to give you a little look at some of the things we do, we cover all 92 counties in Indiana. We go to schools, we go to the BMVs, we go to youth events, we go to different camps, we host a slew of things. Our primary goal is to educate and inform, so that when people do go to the BMV, they're not just making a blind. And that is why we go into schools. A lot of people say, why do you want to educate teens so bad? Well, teens go to the BMV approximately 4 times in their lives, and they're going to be asked the question, do you want to be an organ donor? They're going to go when they get a state ID. They're going to go when they get a learner's permit. And then they're going to go again when they turn 21. And we also have the driver's license. So 4 times they're going to be asked to make a donation decision. We want to make certain they're educated. Secondly, why do we educate teens? It is part of the state standards. Indiana Department of Education has made it a state standard that all high school teens be educated on the importance of organ and blood donation. Although we do not work with blood donation, meaning we're not getting blood from donors, we do also recognize the importance of blood donation, and we do talk about that and bone marrow donation in our classroom presentation. Lastly, why do we educate teens? Because we feel that this is a life skill that everyone should know about, not just, hey, I have a heart on my driver's license, but it's a necessary life skill to understand what you are donating if you choose to. So ways to partner. The biggest thing that we want to do, my hope is when I leave here today, Bart knows this, is I hope that we can provide a classroom presentation to all of your JAG students. Not only do we talk organ donation, but we truly talk about nonprofit donation careers. Donate Life Indiana is a nonprofit organization. So we talk about, hey, you don't have to have a medical background to work for Donate Life or Indiana Donor Network. We talk about the different things that they can do, and they are truly atypical careers that students have never heard from. So we get a really good reaction from students. Another bullet point here is not only do we want to come and see the JAG classes, let's say that a JAG teacher is down south in Evansville. Well, to maximize our presence, what we would really like, since we are a nonprofit, if we're going to go down and do the JAG classes, why not have the health kids and the science classes join? Because that's truly relevant curriculum. And again, it is core curriculum that all high school health students receive this. So telling your JAG teachers the importance of, we want to come in person, but we always want to maximize our time. So if they could work with their health and science teachers or career center teachers, we would love to see as many students as possible. This is we've partnered with other JAG programs for community projects. Students have reached out to us and say they want to do something on organ donation. We've worked with different JAG classes on that. Every year we have an annual awareness challenge. Typically this happens in the month of February. So next year, you would hear from us. If you want to know more about that awareness challenge, or if your teachers do, if you download the Donate Life Indiana app, it talks all about how to do the awareness challenge. All of your advisors, your teachers would hear from me if they're on my list, if I have their email, and they can choose whether or not they want to do our awareness challenge. It's a 1 to 2 week challenge, typically in the month of February, like I said. It's only 1 to 2 weeks because we don't want to bombard students. We don't want it to be too long either. And the last thing I have down here is a way that JAG can partner with us is if students want to do a one-off event. Let's say that there is a blood drive going on in the high school. Why not make it a blood drive and an organ donation awareness drive? Students can do that for community service. And I know JAG students are always wanting to look for ways to help and do more. So those are some ways that we can partner. If you have other ideas, please don't hesitate to reach out to me after this because I am always open for new ideas.
Hey, Andy.
Yeah.
We have a question in the chat from one of our coordinators. Is a minor able to make the choice without the consent of a parent or guardian?
That is a great question. So yes, when a minor signs up, they can sign up, but legally it is not their decision until they turn 18. So even if a 15-year-old was to get on donatelifeindiana.org while I'm like in a class presenting, believe me, students have done it. And I always say, I really don't want you to sign up today. This is more about educating you. I do remind them in every presentation that although they can sign up, it is not their legal decision till they turn 18. So when we have had somebody under 18 die, we always have to go and formally ask the guardian or the family before we move forward with donation. That's an excellent question. Any other questions so far? Just got a few more slides. That's a great question though. Just so you guys know, I am a former teacher. I am very, very involved in formatting a curriculum that is engaging. I don't ever want to leave a school and the kids say they were bored or to say that we were terrible speakers or that something wasn't good. And I will tell you, if I do hear that, I definitely look for ways that we can revamp our curriculum. But just so you guys know, some of the things that JAG students would see, obviously they get to hear about atypical nonprofit career opportunities. They get to hear from real life transplant recipients, whether that's a video or a recipient actually coming to their classroom. We can't always get our recipients to travel, especially depending on where the school is or the amount of kids. They get to see organ models, tissue samples. They get to participate in simulation activities, and they get to see videos from donor families and recipients from Indiana. That last line there is not a bullet point because I always get asked that, but yes, this is completely free. Your school, your JAG teachers, nobody pays a dime to have us come in person. The only thing that would not allow us to come in person is if it's not a big enough group. We would ask to do a virtual presentation, or we would ask the teacher to see if they can get more students involved on the day we're coming.
And Andy,
yep.
In the chat, Greg from Region 7 says, I've heard a lot from our specialists who have had you in their classrooms and said you were great. So.
Oh, yay. That is so good to hear. And I absolutely take all of that information. I look at every single survey we send post-presentation, and we consider that all summer long and think about what we can revamp and what we can do to make certain kids are not only educated, but they're engaged. So thank you for sharing that. Just the last few slides letting you guys know, if your teacher can't have us in person, let's say they're still under pandemic guidelines or they just don't have enough kids, it's a very small group, we can always do virtual. And we even send interactive items in the mail before we do a virtual. The last option is self-guided. I don't love giving a self-guided presentation. That's me in that slide there talking through a self-guided presentation. I don't love it because we're not there to answer questions. And if students end the self-guided and they're left with any questions, we hate that we're not there to answer for them. But we certainly will do a self-guided. We'll send materials. And just so you guys know, here are our follow-up educator survey results. This is after 4 years of presenting. The program began right around 2018. That teachers have been very satisfied, 95%, and then 100% would book us again. And then follow-up student survey results. We definitely want to hear from the students as well. 92% learned something new, 90% found the presentation interesting. Those are pretty good coming from teenagers. We all know, working with teens, they are sometimes hard to find something that's interesting or new to them, but our hope is that organ donation is new. And so this is it. We would love for your advisors who haven't booked us to visit donatelifeindiana.org, and there is an educator tab. So if you use that /educators, or if they just go to donatelifeindiana.org, they'll find the education tab and they'll be able to book us. They'll be able to preview our curriculum. They'll be able to ask a question. Anybody can email me as well. We just ask that they go to the Donate Life site to fill out a booking form, because it's not always going to be me that presents. There is a team of 5 of us because we're covering 92 counties. And it is that important to us to get in front of as many youth as possible as they make their way to the BMV. And there's my email. If you didn't get the website, you can definitely send that to your educators. I can send this presentation to Bart afterwards, but anybody is welcome to email me. If your teachers have any questions, if they want to know what else they can do, I am happy to set up a Zoom call, anything. We just want to work with you guys and continue to have the great success that we've had. Any questions? Any more questions?
Andy, thank you very much. It looks like Region 6 is going to reach out to you. Tabitha from Region 2 asked about your contact information in the chat, so there it is. Make sure everybody writes that down. I'll be sending the presentation out as well with some of the follow-up resources. But yeah, Andy's presentations are really engaging and very informative, but they're fun too. Like in past coordinator meetings, she took us through, if you've been around for ages, since the earth was young, then you would have been her as a coordinator, then you would have been in one of her presentations. So she did it for us a while ago. So if you come up with any questions, please just reach out to her or feel free to ask me. I communicate with them pretty frequently on their youth education council. So it's great information. And she'll answer all the tough questions that students have. She will answer all the rumors, all the myths, all the tough questions she will address.
And just one more thing, guys, on my email address, just know that it's 2 A's if you do email me. A lot of people just put Athrine, and my former name was Ambergy, and so it just keeps being A's. So just when you are reaching out, make sure you do the double A, because so many people say they've emailed me and they haven't put A. So that's all I got. I can't thank you guys enough for partnering with us and continuing to work with us.
Yep, and hopefully this year we can have a lot of people in for the challenge in next year.
Yes, yeah. And just so you guys know, on the awareness challenge, we've had let's see, I think the first prize, the person who does the most awareness events is $500. Second prize is the person who registers the most new organ donors is $250. And then we have a $50 bucket for everybody that does the awareness challenge gets put into a bucket, and we draw a gift card for $50. And I know we've had a JAG, we had a JAG winner last year. We do the challenge with HOSA students, so health occupational students, business group of students, and JAG. So we would love for more JAG groups to join us.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day. Thank you, Bart.
Thank you.
See ya.
Alrighty, so we have about 10 minutes left to cover some of the other items on the agenda. It looks like we'll get through everything, which is surprising, but also a good thing. Career Development Conference is the first thing. Again, the manual was sent out earlier today. Please give it a one over, take a look at it. You know, special thanks to Derek, Greg, Tabitha, and Julie for looking at it and giving that feedback. Colleen did the proofreading, so from a grammar perspective, I know Joe had offered, I didn't forget about you, but I thought, hey, there's one less thing for you to do if Colleen, because Colleen actually specializes in some of that proofreading stuff, so said, okay, Colleen, one of your tasks is to sit here and make sure this is grammatically correct. So, take a look at it. The big changes, as we talked about, PBL competitions back. Christine sent me a resource paper for PBL also that's going to be put in the folder. There's a total CDC folder. Other big changes. Truth be told, there really aren't big changes. The majority of it is the same. If you're, again, a plug for Christine's PBL training, she will have some coming up. If you have specialists that need some PBL refresher, have never done PBL, and plan on doing this competition, please make sure that they take that training. We are going to be very intentional about making sure the judges at the state competition are educated on what PBL is. It's not just going to be, oh, this is a really nice project. If they're not doing a public product with it, you know, for instance, then it's not PBL, right? So, you know, the judges, I would encourage you at the regional level to find judges who maybe have some sort of education background, maybe understand PBL to the degree of, if it doesn't have a public product, then is it really PBL? You know, if they're not going through the steps, is it really PBL or is it just a project? We have a lot of pet entries to the JAG coordinator meeting. I see a dog and a cat all of a sudden. So that cat looks very grumpy, Derek. So there's also a logistics sheet. Please begin putting your logistics in there for your regional CDCs. I am going to, I guess, hopefully assume everybody's back in person this year. I don't view any digital, hopefully, for any regions. So we look forward to attending some of those as state staff. It's something we definitely missed last year. So some takeaways from the last couple of years, you know, if CDC is on somebody's spring break and we can have them attend digitally at the state event, you know, we'll try to do some of those things, that some of the best practices, the live streaming, the virtual if possible. Another big change this year, I guess, is creative solutions is going to be done a little bit differently. One of the suggestions that we talked about is why not have, so the Creative Solutions project for the regional event will be the same as the state event. This will allow the winners at regional to sort of reflect on how to improve their project. They'll be able to, when they meet with the judges, and I'm going to give total credit to Christine for coming up with this thought, that will allow them to reflect and improve their projects. It will also allow them, when they meet with the judges, to sit and say, this was my thought process. This was how I improved it over the past couple weeks after our regional CDC. That way they're not answering that question sort of with the judges like, well, how did you triage this? Or how did you change things? Well, I just learned about it an hour and a half ago. So so this will allow them to really have sort of that sort of deep thought. You know, same kind of thing, same kind of process with critical thinking. you know, they're going to get a scenario, they're going to read it, they're going to have a quick reaction to it at regional, and then in the following weeks, they're going to be able to say, after doing some deep thought, after thinking about it a little bit, this is how I would approach this. This is how I changed it and would approach this topic going forward. So we hope that it makes it a little more less shock value, and I have to think on the fly about it, and a little more reflective. This is, you know, how I altered my thought process since regional based on the feedback I got from judges and my specialists and so on and so forth. Those are sort of the major changes with CDC. Other than that, your staff should be able to prep for the most part as soon as they want. Does this maybe give an advantage to regions that have earlier CDCs? In theory, maybe it could. I think it comes down to whether or not the student, how serious the student takes it. You know, at latest, you know, CDCs end mid to late February. I think the latest one we had one the last week of February last year. It still gives them, you know, a couple weeks to really think about it. That should be sufficient amount of time, really. And again, it comes down to whether or not the student. A lot of times you might think, my CDC's in January, I got all this time to Joe, that is my favorite comment ever. Thanks for getting the manual out quickly. Thanks to our team and everybody for helping to get it out early. August, I think, is a record. So, but to go back to your question, Rick, a lot of times we sit and think, oh, I had 2 months to do this. It's no big deal. I'll do it in late February. And then late February comes and you've forgotten it or whatever. So in theory, it might not be an advantage. It's just kind of based on the student's thought process.
All right, I have a question.
Yep.
We can't find the manual. Is that sent out to people to review, or was sent out? I wouldn't.
It was sent out this morning. I might have an old email for Laura. That might be the issue.
Okay.
I have an
SC. I have her school one. Oh, okay.
Oh, look. If it's the work one, region 10, those are gone. So that might be the problem.
I have an Eckerd. It's Laura. It's like a LO at Eckerd something or other.
Oh yeah, it's probably sitting there. It probably didn't forward. Okay, I'll find it.
Okay. So yeah, that is CDC. The last thing we have is part of our strategic plan calls for additional, let me get back to sorry, too many emails. Our strategic plan calls for an increase in our media presence and our increase in our connectivity with legislators. With that in mind, we have the JAG blog that has popped up. We have the alumni network that has popped up. For you, Greg, you probably heard me bang this drum already at the manager meeting, so you get to hear it again. But please make sure that your specialists and your students in particular are able to are engaged with that alumni network. I'm trying to post stuff on there that is a little more conversational than we put on the Facebook. There's a lot of JAG type of stuff and resources and events and things. So please check out the alumni network and encourage your students and specialists to join it. We're already bigger than Michigan's. They're the first alumni network, kind of peeled a lot of their ideas in creating ours, but it's already bigger. So yeah, I will get the links to everything in a follow-up email. I'm not gonna do it in the chat, but I'll do it in a follow-up email. So Alumni Network blog, there's also a social media spreadsheet that Colleen created that has all of your school accounts on it. So you can tag your schools and school corporations, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the schools. Some of them don't have accounts, obviously, but she put all the ones in there that do. Be sure to be tagging your schools. A lot of the schools are really engaged on social media and they don't know what's going on. Cloverdale is probably front and center. Every time I tweet Cloverdale, they do something with it. And depending on how big the story is, they send it out, themselves as well. So, be tagging your schools. The big thing about social media is if you don't have a big following and you're not tagging anyone, then basically nobody sees it. So make sure you're tagging community partners when you have guest speakers in. I've even had Honda and things connect with me on stuff. So the third spreadsheet you will see, or the third and fourth spreadsheets you will see on that link I send you are your legislators. It is in the strategic plan to be a little more active in connecting with legislators. All of their social media accounts are on there. There's a lot of them that don't really have anything but Facebook, but continue to connect them. When you have a project that's going on or a CDC press release or something that's going on in your region, tag them. They see it. I know that from talking to them and their staffs. They're constantly looking at their social media, even if they might not be tweeting something or putting something out there, they are looking at it. Have your students, it's not illegal. In fact, it's encouraged that your students are constituents. Have them write your legislators about JAG. You know, why they like inviting them into a guest speaking opportunity, inviting them to CDC as a judge. We're doing a lot more. You'll see the state account do a lot more with tagging local legislators as well. We've had a lot follow over the last couple weeks. So that's a good thing. There will be a press release going out today regarding JAG Indiana 505 and the scholarship amounts that we earned. We were just kind of waiting on a quote from Governor Holcomb. He's been out of the country for a while, so it's taken a little bit of time to get that. It will have a quote from Governor Holcomb, so look for us to send that out, and please spray that out among your people and your social media as well. You know, and then I saw a question there, what content are you looking for the blog? If you go to the blog now, you'll kind of see, and I'll put that in a follow-up email as well. I can't really go back and forth with the computer in the chat right now, but I will send it out as a follow-up. But please go ahead and look at the content that's on there. Right now, it's a lot of student stories and specialist stories. It doesn't necessarily need to stay that way, but you know, as we have events and things like that, we'll write about, if you have a big event coming up, let's write it in the blog. Let's do a quick blog. It didn't take a whole lot of time to put those together as long as there's a picture. You know, we do need pictures for it. Right now, it's a lot of student stories though. So does anybody have any questions on all those things? You know, and I would say back to Derek's comment about being more of a data manager now, making the data in versus a lot of input. We're hoping this opens up the opportunity for you and your regions to focus a little bit more on being able to send content, create content for us, create content for yourselves. As it's a legislative session coming up and it's a budget year. And the hope is to have JAG as visible as humanly possible, not only because it's in our strategic plan, but also the more people know about it, the more. I've never heard anybody that I've presented to say, yeah, this JAG stuff isn't for me. So whether it's a legislator or whoever, you know, we want JAG to be more visible, and we hope that, you know, as sort of quote unquote freeing up data entry will allow you to put some of this more at the forefront. And if you have any questions, if you need any, like, okay, how do I tag somebody? What should I be looking for? Reach out. I'm available to sit down with you and go through all that stuff in real time, and find out, you know, it's Suicide Prevention Day. Are you having a guest speaker in for that? Potentially, you know, use that hashtag. Use those things that are sort of being passed around and go viral and things of that nature. So does anybody have any questions on any of that? I've kept you 1 minute over, and that is a sin of meetings in government world, so I apologize. Anybody have any immediate questions that need answered?
Just want to say Cloverdale was not very happy about not winning the social media competition last year, so they're really going to be hitting it harder this year, so you'll probably see more from them.
Appreciate the good competition. Alrighty, guys. There's a lot of information today. Process it. This is recorded. I will send the recording out as soon as it's processed as well, so you have that. There will be a long follow-up email with all the links and pertinent things, so be on the lookout for it. Thank you for your time. Sorry to Derek's cat if it cut into their connectivity time, because he seems angry, and we will see you guys here going forward. Okay, thanks for all you do.